Hello and welcome to the On the Slate movie podcast. I'm Wesley.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Asher.
And today we're going to be talking about The Incredibles, the 2004 Pixar film. We're going to talk about everything from the major characters to the themes that resonate with so many people and also some cool filmmaking techniques employed by the movie. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about the Mount Rushmore, the top 4 best superhero movies of all time. Let's do this, fellas. Well, how's it going, boys?
We didn't go anywhere. What are you talking about? We live here.
This is a simple question. Why are we laughing?
I wasn't expecting it.
I'm just asking how my friends are doing, but I don't have to do that.
Friends?
I'm doing incredible.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm doing incredible.
Wow.
It's great
I
to
see
be
what you
here.
did there.
Yeah. Low hanging fruit.
I'm doing incredible too. That wasn't that funny.
Incredible.
But then you put in 2. And
it's
so I
funny.
wasn't expecting that.
That's funny because there's 2 Incredibles movies.
Yeah, that was the joke, Wesley. Thanks for explaining that. Anyways,
Well,
we got an agenda here.
this is our second ever video podcast. So every time I do that, I'm just going to say this is our 14th video podcast. And then we're going to get to like our 205th. I'm going to say the same thing. Just because it's always a great moment in time when we get together and talk about films because we're snobby like that.
You need to repeat. You need to.
Anyway, this is The Incredibles. Hey, did you answer my question? How are you doing?
He said he was incredible.
There was the whole
too.
joke about the.
But like really though, how are you?
On a deeper level.
Well,
How are you?
I'm doing. I'm doing good, Wesley.
Yeah, go
good.
ahead. Cough right in the microphone.
That was part of the.
I don't know if this is going to make it in the final cut of the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So
I think it should. No.
Pixar made this movie. They started out as a company like in the 90s, right? The first ever movie was Toy Story, which was also like the first full-length feature animated film in like computer generated style. So that was a big deal. And then they did a couple years later A Bug's Life, and then they did like Toy Story 2 and other movies like Monsters Inc.,
Finding
Nemo. Yeah, and The Incredibles, which was written and directed by Brad Bird, who is like one of the few auteurs of animated movies out there. You know, you think of like Miyazaki as well, but Brad Bird, yeah, just wrote what is one of the often thought of as one of the best animated movies of all time and directed.
It was his first animated movie. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything with Pixar before that.
No, they brought him in for Pixar. I mean,
For
they
The
brought him in
Incredibles.
for The Incredibles. I was listening to some behind the scenes stuff earlier today, and he said that they brought him in because they didn't want to become complacent in their movies.
Yeah.
And so they wanted his edge, they wanted his energy for this next movie. And The Incredibles idea even was around for a while. Like he said he had drawings that kind of were tied to this idea from I think like years before they even started on it and stuff. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And what a crazy pitch for a movie. Like, let's make a movie for like, it's like an animated movie that's going to be geared towards, you know, families. And then let's make it about a family of superheroes. But, oh, by the way, the main character of this movie is also going through a midlife crisis. And that's
Yeah.
one of the major themes for a movie. I can't believe this got approved, but I'm glad it did because it's an
Yeah.
amazing movie. And we'll talk more about that midlife crisis thing in a bit.
They made
But
it
yeah.
work really well.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
For sure. And right at the center of this whole movie is probably Mr. Incredible. I think he's probably the main character, Bob Parr. Although the family dynamic as a whole is at the center, right? And yeah, he's just your typical, you know, middle-aged dad, right? And yeah, so basically the way the story goes is like he's a big-time superhero called Mr. Incredible, If you've never seen the movie, by the way, major spoilers ahead.
Major.
21 years old at this point, so go see it. But yeah, so superheroes are at the top of the world, and Mr. Incredible is like the face of superheroes, or at least I think that's how they make him out to be. Like, he is the guy, super strength, always saves the day. He even rips a tree out of the ground to like save a cat, which may be a little bit excessive, but
I think that's played to show that he's kind of like not caring.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't care, but that he's like, he's not thinking his work through.
Yeah, he was pretty careless and a bit reckless.
Careless. Yeah.
Yeah, in his glory days of
Yeah.
superhero work. But he also used that tree to stop the car chase.
So,
yeah.
and then
Which-
he does put the tree
So
back.
he was creative.
Yeah,
How he did it.
but putting the tree back doesn't mean it's gonna still grow.
I feel like he also didn't need to throw a tree at moving vehicles in a busy highway too. But hey, it's a movie. It's fine.
Yeah.
He stopped the bad guys.
He stopped the bad guys and got to show off of his superpowers. He also had a cool car, by the way.
Dude, I had his car as a toy. I loved it.
Did
Nice.
it do all the things?
Not all the things, but
Did it turn into a less cool car like it does in the movie? We only see it do that
I think
once.
that was part of the
Transformed.
part of. I think that was part of the toy.
Okay.
They would transform into a regular car.
with the little finger bent, the finger marks.
Well, no, that
bent
was the
down.
family car later on.
Oh, the family car.
Yeah,
Okay.
his original
His-
car was a regular kind of black one.
His
Yeah.
supercar
Oh, gotcha.
made for
Yeah.
super people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like how when he puts his hands up, those humongous silver, what are they even called? Just like contraptions come out of
Yeah, to
nowhere.
put the
They come out
gloves
of the
on.
like ceiling
Oh,
to
yeah.
put his gloves on. It's
Yeah.
It's like, where'd they hide that?
Why is that necessary?
Yeah, and that whole opening sequence I think is really well made. It's an incredible opening scene, just establishing like his place in the world, how he views life in general, just oozing with confidence. He doesn't care if he's like wait until the last minute to do something, and he's late to his own daggum wedding, right? Like, he's just
got
loving his life as a superhero.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he doesn't want Buddy, which I guess he says his name isn't Buddy, it's Incredible Boy, right? He doesn't want Buddy to join in with him, because at first you might think, well, he doesn't want a kid to get hurt. Maybe that's part of it, but also like you learn throughout the story, like, yeah, he's kind of was like a little selfish. Like he works alone, right? But then obviously like meets Elastigirl, who's voiced by Helen Hunt, by the way.
Which is cool because her name, the character Elastigirl's name
Wait,
is Helen.
did I get that right?
I think so. Helen Hunt.
Helen Parr. I could be totally just lying to the general public right now.
That's okay. I've done it before.
Let's get it straight. Let's see here.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, oh, Holly Hunter. Helen Hunt is a different HH
Oh, okay.
Holly
movie
Hunter.
star. So Holly Hunter, not Helen Hunt. And yeah, the voice of Bob Parr is Craig T. Nelson. So maybe
Great-
not
great
superstars
casting.
in today's day and age, but back in the day. Yeah. So yeah, what do you guys think? Like, any other observations about like that opening sequence?
Well, I like when Incrediboy shows up. You can see how devoted he was because on his costume or on his super suit, he had the Incredible Eye logo, but then he had a little curved dash to resemble the B part of like a lowercase b. And so it was like a lowercase I, but it also resembled a lowercase b for Incrediboy, which I thought was really funny. And the fact that it was also lowercase just makes it funny because you kind of saw him as like a sidekick or something. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I'm Incrediboy.
Incredible. And I like how the Bon Voyage with his French accent, he's like, Incredible.
And he told him in French, he's like, and your outfit is ridiculous.
Yeah, man. It's a funny opening scene with a lot of high energy. I like those little like TV interviews that they show too.
Yeah.
With,
It's like a documentary or The Office. Even.
And Brad Bird, I listened to him talk about that. He really was intentional about that. He wanted to introduce the superheroes first in a more human way instead of this big superhero scape fight or scenario. Like he wanted to make them down to earth so that we could relate to them. And we can definitely get into this more later, but something else he said that I thought was really cool was they wanted to kind of contrast the way the characters were introduced to how they kind of ended up after the superhero strikes and stuff. Because Bob, Mr. Incredible, is talking about, you know, possibly wanting to settle down one day in the interview. And we fast forward, he is settled down. He has a family, but he's actually kind of struggling with that now.
And he was like, I'm at the top of my game.
Yeah,
you know, like,
right? And then Elastigirl, she was like doing her thing. She was Miss Independent Woman. I'm good. But then we see later on, she's actually doing pretty well in the transition of being a mom and a wife. And then you see Frozone, you know, he's basically the ladies' man in the interview. And then fast forward, he's married, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was cool hearing Brad talk about the contrasts that he wanted to make with these characters of how they were to kind of how life changed for them later on in the movie, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. And that concept of like superheroes being outlawed, you know, because, you know, collateral damage, you know, people getting saved that didn't want to be saved, you know, people will do anything to like take power away from like those that are more powerful than them. I guess I don't know like how big of a theme that was for y'all, but just how that changed everybody's life like completely, you know. And what is it like if the superheroes like, you know, we like to talk about their superhero times and stuff, but what if these were everyday people? How would they react? And you know, just kind of embracing the Clark Kent type identity, or you know, the Peter Parker rather than, you know, so exploring that avenue in a way that I don't think I've seen before, under this, you know, premise of like Bob having a midlife crisis, and like you said, Helen is kind of like settling in as a mom and a husband, and like doesn't really mind that she's moved on. So yeah, I think the two of them are kind of the crux of this movie, and like their characters tell the most about what the movie's trying to say. I think. So yeah. So the superheroes get outlawed. Bob gets a rundown job as like an insurance claims guy, which, no offense, Jason, I know you're an insurance guy, but that job seemed really terrible.
Well, I'm not in claims, so I'm not over here like denying people money. That's somebody else's
He's an
terrible
ethical
job.
insurance guy.
That's not what I said.
So he's not ethical.
That's not what no, I mean, but it's not an inaccurate. It's obviously exaggerated.
Yeah, I mean, it's cartoonized.
But that does that does really happen where, I mean, let's just be clear. Companies are here to make money. So how do they make money? Well, they do it by not spending it. So people do get denied their claims. So I think it's a really small part of the movie, and it's really in service of another theme.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think another one of those things where it's like there's someone above Bob who's technically shouldn't be able to control him, but does anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think that movie is trying to be like a scathing critique of late stage capitalism or anything. But I think what it is trying to do, like you said, paint this picture of like his job is like so anti like what Mr. Incredible wants in life, you know?
Yeah. And
he can't even help people at his job.
Yeah.
And that's what he's technically supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also personifies that presence in the form of his boss.
Yeah.
And they characterize it really intelligently. Obviously, using this like small man, big guy.
It was so funny. Those scenes were so hilarious.
But, and when we were watching the movie, you said it is like, I don't know how technically the heroes could have just ignored whatever the government said. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And they kind of personify that there in that moment, especially leading up to him deciding to throw his boss through like 5 walls.
Yes. That was so funny. That scene, man, when he says, he was like, you found every loophole trying to like help people, but who's helping the shareholders?
Who's helping the shareholders, Bob?
I'm not happy, Bob.
It's just so funny, so well performed and written.
By law,
it's
I'm
hilarious.
required to say no.
And that was funny. That's the first time I heard that part.
By law. Yeah, and as a kid, like the last time I saw this movie was when I was a kid. So I hadn't seen this movie in like, 10 or whatever years. Or maybe more, now that I think about it. But the older you get, the further away being a child is.
Yeah, we weren't kids 10 years ago.
I was like a high school senior 10 years ago. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying now. Uh-oh. Yeah, but seeing it as an adult, like I have an entirely new appreciation and like understanding of the movie. And I think I like it more as an adult than I did as a kid.
Same.
And I think this is a movie for adults in a lot of ways. Like not in like it's a mature, content, but like it's talks about like having a midlife crisis and like, finding purpose and meaning, like what you're doing, I think is a big part of it. So I'm not trying to get too sappy about The Incredibles, but
Yeah.
I definitely have that newfound appreciation for it. And that scene in particular was one that it felt like I was watching it for the first time, just because like, oh, I actually like understand the scene now. Like other than like Bob doesn't like his job and, gets mad at his boss, but I discovered like all the nuances to it and helped me appreciate it a lot more. So,
Yeah. I'm right there with you. It's fun as a kid enjoying all the things that make it a fun movie, like the set pieces and the adventure and the characters. But then as you get older, really seeing some of the other themes in it, I think is really good. And we even talked about this after we watched the movie, like the scene where Mrs. Incredible and Dash and Violet are in the cave on the island, and she's basically giving them the rundown of what is ahead of them. She's like, hey, you remember those movies, or you remember those shows you used to watch on Saturday, the bad guys? These guys aren't like those bad guys. Like, they will kill you. And to be able to deliver that in a way that isn't like super harsh, but also very what is it, like they were able to be realistic about that, and things like that I think add a lot of depth to the movie, because they're not shying away. Like, yeah, it's it's still geared for kids as well, but they're not shying away from some of these real life situations. And I think that just adds a lot of depth to the characters. And you see it because they grow so much through these situations. And you can see how the kids grew. Like, they're still kids at the end of it. They still like being the age they are. Like, Violet's going to go on a date by the end of the movie, and Dash now can run in sports. But, they're able to take the scenarios they're in and like grow from it and take those. Yeah.
Yeah. And on like that note, and forgive me if I'm like going a little bit further into the conversation than we are, but like what you said, Wesley, about it, that this movie's for adults, and I agree with that. But I also think like the Brad Bird and maybe the entire team at Pixar who worked on this just understood that they respected the audience, and they respected the fact that kids are intelligent.
Preach it.
Specifically, like you mentioned with that, the line about like, this isn't like your cartoons, they're going to kill you. Like, I watched that as a kid and I understood that. And it wasn't like a morbid thing. It wasn't like I watched something specifically made for adults, like you said, where it's like mature or whatever. But it's like I understood the stakes. The movie isn't treating me, 8-year-old me, like I don't know what death is.
Yeah.
Or the concept that I could die. Now, I'm not saying every kid at 8 knows that, but I reckon most kids actually understand that death is a permanent concept, right? And that things can happen to you that cause you to die. So and you see that throughout the entire film. It's just they respect the audience regardless of who's watching. So like I would say less it's a movie made for adults and more so a movie that appreciates anyone who's going to give it the time to watch it.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, man, because I highly dislike when movies water down content for kids.
Right?
Because it's just frustrating, because then, you know, you're spending time to watch something, and to me it matters. It matters what you choose to watch. And so if people are just giving kids movies that have really passable scripts with a bunch of bathroom jokes and calling it a day, like, what are we doing? I'm not against bathroom jokes. Like, I think when you properly place bathroom jokes, that's okay. But when you use it as a crutch, you know, that's different. And I'm not trying to crash on bathroom jokes. That's kind of what it sounds like.
I don't like them.
You can get that crap out of here.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Asher, and not to tangent too far away from, you know, the film itself, but just like this idea in general that children's content's kind of changed. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe I'm just an old man shaking my stick at the sky, but you know, I definitely feel like the stuff I watched as a kid it respected me more. And if I want, you know, watching some of the newer stuff that comes out, I'm like, they don't respect the intelligence of children. And I think it's created this kind of stigma where we just assume kids are dumb. And let me be transparent.
Let me be clear.
Kids can be dumb, but they aren't unintelligent.
Right.
Right. So,
I mean, even from an early age, you know, kids catch on to things.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when I was a kid, I didn't get all of it, but no, I agree with you guys.
You didn't have to say that. You didn't have to review.
Wait, are you saying like you didn't get all of the movie?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was saying is like, when I was a kid, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't understand about the movie that I didn't realize I didn't understand until I watched it as an adult. So like,
well, yeah, I think there's that aspect of it too. Cause I'm right there with you as well. You know, like I watched this movie this past summer, I think. And then I watched it again when we watched it, and there's things that I catch up on that I didn't catch before. And I think part of that is as you change in age.
Yeah. And I'm not saying when I first saw this that I instantly understood everything that was going on.
You got your monocle like, I understand.
But I'm just saying that the movie doesn't it's not hiding things behind double meaning or it's not shying away from certain concepts because, this is for children, you know? And I think it's definitely like geared towards you'll understand it if you're in a place to understand it. And if you aren't, there's still a lot of entertaining fun. Yeah. You know?
And the movie, and I didn't want to say like the movie's absolutely like accessible for kids. Like I'm not saying it absolutely is, right? Like it's hilarious. Kids love it. I loved it as a kid. But yeah, I don't know. I guess my point is like there was more appreciation as a grown up.
I mean, I think that's true for everything we watch, right? Like everything I've watched, you know, as a kid or as a teenager or even 5 years ago watching it again, it's just like there's a new... Yeah. With age comes wisdom.
Or it's the opposite, and you're like, why did I like this movie?
This is garbage.
Yeah, and then but if like I watched the Chris Pratt Garfield movie as a kid, I probably would have liked it. But then me watching it last year, I was like, why am I here?
They're dumbing down children's content. I'm telling you, bro. It's a conspiracy.
So there's definitely both sides. And every time I sit through a dang Minions movie, I'm like,
oh my goodness.
All right, bro.
Why do I do this to myself?
I
for
think
the content,
Minions
boys. For
has
the content.
some rule of cool, but
I think so.
What, Despicable Me's rule of cool?
More like whimsy.
Rule of whimsy? Is that a new rule?
We can
the will of whimsy.
The will of
what is it?
The will of whimsy.
That's okay.
Anyways, segue, please.
Segue. So Bob wraps his whole identity basically around like, I guess his like inner desire to be a hero. You know, so I think that's why you see him so miserable at his job. and, you know, getting in a fight with his wife because his wife is not like necessarily complete opposite. Like, I think she likes being a hero, but I think she's definitely like more like mature. More mature in the sense like, oh, I have a family and like a husband and kids and responsibility to them, you know? So I think in a way at the beginning, she is all about like womanhood. Like, I think that's what she embraced. Like, as like in the opening interview, I can't talk today. She was like, should we just let the men run the show? I don't think so. Right. But then
I don't think so.
But then she's like also like embracing her womanhood of like being a wife and a mother later on. So whereas Bob is just like so focused on like, I need to be a hero. Like, that's the value that I have in my life. He doesn't really see the heroism as much as like being a father. And like that, even like in the way that he like fathers Dash, he's like trying to get Dash and encourage his, you know, superheroism. Yeah. Which I think is fine. Like, I like that he has that part of himself. It's just a matter of like, how do I handle this in a more mature way? And I think by the end of the movie, he realizes that, you know, and I think Helen also lets up a little bit too. And she's like, okay, maybe we can embrace this side a little bit more as well. So I like how they both kind of come together. Yeah. So it's also like, here's how you like grow in a marriage too. Like, there's a lot of,
right.
You know,
neither of them are portrayed as like being outright wrong about any like in their general like philosophies, I guess, or the way they've lived their lives, just like misguided. And maybe, you know, like to your point, they're just too far one way and they're not meeting in the middle. And I think the film does a really good job of that, especially like it's just a whole really after the, you know, the sequence, you know, where they get married and all that stuff, it just jumps right into where they are now. And it's a big chunk of it. It's a sizable chunk of the movie before he even gets that invitation from, I don't even know, Syndrome, I guess.
By the way, that's a really good edit, like in the movie. Like, they edited that really well.
Which part from like marriage to then
like the marriage top of his game to like the present day, like we're all getting sued. I thought that was a really great way to like cut that and segue that in.
And even in between, it has when she says at the wedding, you know, we're superheroes. Oh no, he says it, right?
Oh, he does the cliche. What could possibly happen?
Yeah. And then like the newspaper rolls in. Yeah. It's just in.
So yeah, I mean that's really good. I really like that part of the movie. And I think some examples like of like their two different philosophies like really clashing was the dinner sequence. When she's literally got her like stretchy arms wrapped around the table and holding both of her kids in her hands and Jack too, and then Mr. Incredible's just kind of like hanging out like in the kitchen or whatever.
He's so like removed from the actual present situation.
So she feels like she has to handle everything at home, right? And he's like totally disconnected. But then he goes out and like saves people from a burning, you know, a burning building and stuff. And gets crap for it by the police, and they have to escape, right? Because Mr. Freeze was like, or not Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
Oh, what's his name? Frozone. Mr. Freeze. He like freezes the cop, you know. So they basically like almost get in trouble for like trying to do the right thing. So they're both like working really hard and like putting a lot of effort into like what they think is the right thing, but they're neglecting the other side, you know. So. Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And like that fight that they had where they're like yelling at each other when he gets home after that, I thought that was really well written and performed.
Agreed.
So,
yeah, it's cool because one of the animators for the argument scene was encouraged a lot just to like keep pushing the envelope, like really sell through their motion, their facial expressions, their body movement, what this really looks like. And so it's cool just hearing like how intentional they were. And to me, you know, them, like the Incredibles, the Pars as a family, like as a whole, a lot of it felt very believable, you know, like, yeah, they're supers, but they have the same issues that other families have. Yeah. And I can understand that, you know, like when she's asking Bob at the dinner table to intervene, he just like picks up the table. He's like, I'm intervening.
I'm intervening. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like how those two characters really had that clash and then came together at the end. So yeah, and just like there's that element of like having a midlife crisis, almost like, man, maybe I should have stood up more. And you know, Bob gets this opportunity, right, to go back into hero work, and instead of like telling his wife, because he knows his wife is going to get mad, right? Well, he thinks his wife will get mad. Maybe she would have at that point in the movie, but because he had just lost his job, or wait, but she didn't know that.
No,
She didn't know
She
that
didn't know
either.
that at the time.
it was kismet that he lost his job and got a new job right away.
Yeah. So he told her like, oh, I'm going on a conference, right? And it, like, even as a kid, I think I did understand it like after watching it a few times as a kid, but even at first, like, I didn't realize this whole thing is like setting up like, oh, maybe Helen thinks he's like cheating on her.
Yeah.
You know? So that was a whole element because there was that, what's her name?
Mirage
Lady. So.
And Helen questions it right away, kind of, because it's in the scene where he's like blow drying the books because
she questions him being fired.
No, she questions him saying he's going to a conference because she's like, already? Like,
Yeah.
you're, like
Oh,
they don't
okay.
usually send you out to conferences.
But she like kind of.
She brushes it off.
She brushes it off and like chooses to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
you know, hey, I'm seeing my husband like happier than ever now, like getting in shape, you know, they're the kissing scenes and, you know, like what that implies, right? Like, you know, like their marriage is a lot better, you know?
Yeah.
Spending time with the kids.
Yeah. Spending
Yeah.
time
Or
with the
Dash,
kids,
at least.
playing toys with Dash and stuff.
Yeah. And he was more affectionate to Violet as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly, like in that moment, like that was good for Bob. Like it was good for at least his like mental health, you know, doing something that he loved doing. And so that, yeah. But the bad part is he like lied about it, right?
Yeah.
And,
And he kept under that lie for 2 months, I think, right? Mm-hmm. That's how long he was fired until Helen found out.
Yeah.
yeah. Which it's funny how she found out, which is one of the funniest characters you'll ever see in a movie. Edna Mode.
Do you know where he is?
The perfect comic relief. I mean, so funny. Voiced by Brad Bird, actually. And I
Yeah.
read in the trivia that they hired actress Lily Tomlin, who's like, you know, a really iconic actress from, you know, the 20th century. But she went in and like read some lines. They were like going to hire her. And then I think Brad Bird was like, okay, here's how I kind of want you to sound. And then Lily Tomlin was like, well, why don't you just do it? Like, it's perfect when you do it. So Brad Bird does the voice of Edna Mode.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Not
just
her talking
hilarious.
herself out of a job.
Yeah, well, you know.
I love watching him perform the lines because he has his arms like this and he kind of is like, you know, moving his hand like he's really in it. And it's just so
Yeah.
funny. I love it.
Yeah, and so basically how Helen finds out, right, is Bob takes his old uniform because it was ripped up. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, he says, oh, I'm just patching it up for sentimental value. But Edna Mode knew. Like,
Yeah.
And even made him a new suit. But
She's
then
no dummy.
he puts that back on display in his like office, and Helen sees like the patch and he's like, Edna Mode.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
through that, you know, Edna's like, you know, I don't think your husband is actually who you think he is right now. So yeah, I thought that was a really great way to tie all that in.
Yeah.
And Edna's just hilarious, you know, hilarious character. The scene where she like shows off all of the super suits, I thought was really
Yes.
cool.
So good.
Like how she specifically literally tailored every single suit to like fit each set of powers, even Jack's. It's
Well,
like,
she was
we don't
like,
know what
I don't
he
know
does,
what he's
but
going to do, so we're just going to blow it up.
he's just
light it
gonna
on
make him
fire.
indestructible.
She's like, well, I don't know, darling. Luck prepares the favored. Or favor, what'd she say?
Like prepared.
The prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, luck favors the prepared.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Edna Mode, man. Maybe the funniest character in the whole movie.
She's so funny. She's so funny. I love like her introduction is perfect. Like
Yeah.
the way we're introduced to her is just the best way to introduce this character. You know, Bob pulls up to her house and like you got that guy at the gate video camera. He's like, do you have an appointment? And then like instantly Edna Mode comes in. She's like, go away, go check the fence or something. And then she goes up to the camera and she's like, what is it? Who are you? What do you want?
Yeah. What is it? What do you want? Yes,
Oh my goodness,
I help
you've
you,
got
darling. Man, so great.
I love how she goes on about how supermodels are just so
Like pretentious.
Yeah. She's like,
Yeah.
nothing super about them.
And Edna Mode also single-handedly like changed society's perception on capes for superheroes with one scene.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Every time I see a superhero with a cape, I'm like, no
Damn.
capes.
No capes.
No capes.
Which makes it so much more impactful when Syndrome has a cape.
Yeah.
And it's literally his downfall.
Yeah. That was funny. And I like how they tied that all in.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
He wanted to, I feel like it's kind of like he wanted to show off so much because of how Bob treated him when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to show off so much. So of course we're going to have a cape for my suit that's more flashy. He's even got like really white boots and he's all flash.
He's polarizing.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
just
Even
adds
that
so
first
much.
scene where he like, where the movie tells you like, oh yeah, this is Buddy from his childhood, right? Yeah, I thought that was a good way to introduce the character and how he ends up Mr. Incredible ends up uncovering all this whole plot of how he's trying to wipe out all the superheroes. Is it the most original idea of like, I mean, I guess it is a pretty original idea for like his supervillainy. And I like how they even like make fun of the fact that he was like monologuing.
You slide dog.
You slide dog.
I said you caught me monodog.
You caught me monologuing. Monoslide dogging.
No, but dude, talk about an antagonist in Syndrome.
Yeah.
Very well written.
Yeah. I mean,
Extremely
a
well
solid movie villain. And yeah, just he almost is like has a superpower and his like intellect and capabilities of, using all these resources to, he's almost like a Lex Luthor type in a way. But he's just completely driven by like revenge almost, or like getting back, showing that he's better than the superheroes, which is almost like a I don't know what the right word is. Like, it's almost like the extremity of like why society got rid of superheroes in the first place, because they're dangerous. He's like, yeah, I think that they're so dangerous, but I can be like one and I can be better and get rid of the other ones and everybody's going to love me. So there's a lot of layers into like why, he is the way he is.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, you don't have to sympathize with him though, because he's he's doing some pretty awful things, right? Killing all these superheroes who are people, who have real people problems, like we established, and yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think his actions are sympathy worthy, but I think like his motivation.
yeah,
I mean, when you talk about sympathetic villains, I don't know if he's like up there with a ton of them, but I think like the way he's portrayed, the best villain is a villain I guess you can understand.
you can see the path to how they got there.
Yeah, because no one likes a villain where their motives are like vague. It's like, why are you even? I mean, there's room for like evil to be evil.
Rule the world.
And like we just watched Lord of the Rings, and like the villain is like just this omnipotent evil presence, right?
Yeah.
But for especially this kind of movie, I think people, or at least me, like really appreciated where Syndrome's like coming from. Not to say you agree with him. It's like, man, I can see why. Like you're clearly putting Mr. Incredible in a position where he created like this person, and he's partially responsible. Now, is he responsible for the fact that all these people are bad? No, like that's all on Syndrome.
Yeah.
However, there is some part of his to play in that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, a solid villain, and his arc is almost like the negative, right? It's like he starts like ambitious, wanting to be good, but the reasoning why he wanted to be good, was selfish, right? And not, and he let that. And he also created an AI robot that was outsmarted him at the end,
Yeah,
Not even a minute into him pretending to fight the robot.
Yeah, which I thought that was an interesting detail of like how even his own creations outshone him. You know, like he
Yeah.
was just always number two. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of his character, perpetually second place.
Yeah.
You know,
But I like that they don't end his story there. Like, cause the robot smacks him, his jet boots or his boot jets. What's the right way? His flying boots.
His implements that allow him to hover.
Yeah, his feet, his boots get all messed up, and so his flight pattern's all screwed up, and he ends up flying like into the building, and basically he's probably knocked out. He kind of tries to get up, but then he falls back down. And I think it would have been a huge disservice if they would have ended his character right there and just kind of sidelined him for the rest of the third act. But the way they bring him back into the movie still shows that he has this intelligence to figure something else out. Because when he's home with Jack threatening to take Jack away, like that's still threatening, you know? And I like how they kind of brought him in for one final hurrah for him, like trying to do something to get at the Incredibles and make a lasting impact on them. But fortunately, Jack's got some stuff up his sleeve.
Jack goes 1 versus 1 against the big bad and wins. And like that's why Syndrome died, basically.
Yeah.
It's because Jack.
Yeah.
And because of those capes.
And then also they did the cool team up where they threw Elastigirl up.
That was cool.
And
Throw me, Bob.
throw me, Bob.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to toss me. That's what that reminded me of in the moment.
Don't tell the elf.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
man.
yeah, I mean, just to really, I mean, it's like, we'll talk about the action sequences in a bit, but yeah, I mean, that whole third act was, I thought, like, you know, there's so many superhero movie third acts that are just mindless. Everything looks kind of vaguely gray with a lot of CGI.
Passable.
Things blowing up. And I guess you're like nice when you look at it, but you're like, this is meaningless to me.
Giant robot.
But this one felt like character building. Like,
Oh, for sure.
they really like, especially, and I want to talk about this in specific, like the family, like as a superhero team, like we're
Beautiful.
working together. Like,
Beautiful.
It felt like, I don't know if this analogy does anything for anybody, but I play a lot of like RPG games, like party based, like you have your healer, your tank, you know, it almost felt like that. Like they were working in tandem, like they all needed each other to accomplish the goal. Like they couldn't just go out by themselves. And I also liked how they showed each individual's powers, like how that they were really effective, right? Like Mr. Incredible was obviously strong, but he was also smart. He was athletic. Like he could do all of these different things, and they showed that off really well. Like him doing his like stealth jump down when he was infiltrating the base. Remember that? Like when he fell on top of the, like down the mountains and everything.
Yes, dude.
That was cool. And the sound design.
Dude, sound design, sound editing, amazing. That was the moment, at least when we watched it, where it brought thoughts back to my mind about the sound design and sound editing. Like him flying and whizzing through the night brisk air. I don't know if it was brisk, but just like the night air.
It feels brisk.
It's quiet.
Yeah.
It's quiet, and then he uses the palm trees to slow his fall, and like the way the leaves react and the sound, dude.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that it got awarded with the sound editing Oscar.
Oh, it deserves
which
it.
was crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But what were you going to say?
Which, by the way, so you know the flying pods that were chasing Violet and Dash?
Yeah.
So I was listening to one of the guys who worked on the sound for the movie, and he said kind of a lot of the inspiration for how those were to sound revolved around like sharp objects and knives and things, because it looked like, you know, you had these knives spinning around the main hub of the craft. And so some of what you hear in the final film are edited variations of knives being sharpened.
Oh, wow.
And if you go back and listen, like you can hear like, oh yeah, that does sound like someone sharpening a knife. But then they pair it with, you know, other things. And I think he said even they did recordings of like metal sheets scraping on other metal sheets, like just things that are very metally and sharp to, just make those crafts more, just to bring them to life. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Man, Pixar in its prime. Just so much love and passion. And even today, they still make really good movies. But yeah. And just back to that bit about like the teamwork, like I think the best scene like with Elastigirl, as far as like what she could do, was when she's infiltrating the base and like those doors keep shutting on her and she keeps stretching. Not only is she like stretching and doing cool stretchy things, but she's also like being really smart and like adapting to the situation when things aren't going right. She's got to get the key card, but then there's people coming behind her. So then she has to like kick them in the face. And then she has to feel around that guy's face to punch her and then grab the key card. That was so great. And yeah, I mean, and then I don't know, what's some other great super team moments.
Kind of before we move on from that, I also like how that scene is compared to Mr. Incredible's. I like how they're using the same, I guess, event of them infiltrating the base and contrasting their powers really well. Just kind of showing how they solve things differently too. You know, she's really sneaky, and I know like he kind of, Mr. Incredible starts stealthily, but like whenever like you play a stealthy video game, eventually you just like he just picks up the pod and throws it at people.
Basically, like I'm pretty sure that one guard is dead. Like he throws a rock at that one guard.
Yeah, he throws a boom,
and it falls down. Yeah,
and then he like just gets in there. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's really well designed.
It's cinema.
Yeah.
It's really well designed, storytelling without even saying words, just pure animation genius. Yeah.
It's like you just get so much from that. Like it's really simple. It's like, how about we have these two characters with different powers and make them do the same thing at different points in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just tells you so much.
And I like how there's the duet of like Violet and Dash when they're out, well, in the cave, but more specifically when they're running from all of the like bad guys, the faceless bad guys, and how it shows off their teamwork, but also like even when they get separated, what they can do.
Yes.
Violet with her force fields, like going invisible and like going in the water, and also how she's like using force fields to protect everybody, and she's like the support character she's your healer,
Well, I like how like in the fight scene in the jungle, it shows them discovering, I guess, new abilities. Dash running on water, and Violet being able to maintain a shield.
Yeah, the Dash scenes are really cool too.
And
and how they play like his like youthful energy into like how he solves the problems and like escapes and beats the bad guys, and just like his, I don't know, he almost seems like a hurried dog who's like got his tongue sticking out, like running around.
I love that.
And then they bring those moments back into the final fight. Even though it's literally like, I don't know, like an hour later within the movie, right?
Yeah.
Where they're in the jungle and then they go to the city, but like just the instant, maybe not instant, but the maturation of their powers. Yeah. Where he's running on water seamlessly in the city, and Violet has no hesitation to like stop the entire mech. What are they called? Omni droids, stopping the entire Omni droid's weight with one shield, protecting her neck. It's just really. Again, it's those things they're communicating to us through the events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like Frozone too, like he has some really cool.
He has the best powers. Frozone,
cool aesthetics.
Has the best powers, bro.
He's
yeah.
I don't know. He looked at the Silver Surfer's surfboard and he's like, "That's cool. Here's mine."
Yeah.
He's got like the best like throwback like 1960s superhero costume.
Dude, yes.
Which the whole movie is like an alternate like 1960s, which also is a really, really intriguing and fun
A lot
setting.
of Art Deco.
A lot of great Art Deco.
Agreed.
And it's a vibe for sure.
Agreed. Even through the music, like it reflects that time period, I think, a lot.
Oh yeah, it's like it echoes like James Bond soundtrack and like those spy thrillers,
Got like big band themes in there too.
Great
elements.
score.
Beautiful.
Man, and they just brought in that big jazz band and went crazy. I've seen the lead trumpet guy who the lead trumpet who plays all the high notes. I've seen him like perform that on YouTube and stuff. It's really interesting. You should check it out. But
that's cool.
Even to this day, people like always humming that tune, and the most iconic like sound like the most iconic score in like Pixar's history, I think. I mean, Toy Story's got like You've Got a Friend in Me and stuff,
Yeah.
but that's
Is
like
that
more
really
of a
like
song,
That's
right?
soundtrack.
It's more of like a soundtrack, you know. And
yeah.
We debated this.
What else? Are there any other score heavy or?
I mean, I
What
hear
other
Soul
Pixar-
is good, but I don't know if it has the iconic, you know.
I think for me, if there's any other outstanding scores that are pretty memorable for me, I think it's Inside Out's score. Like,
Yeah.
The first one?
But I don't know if
dun,
that's like as
dun.
culturally iconic, you know, as
I think it
Incredibles.
has. I think they kind of have their own lanes for sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, all of that was really great, and the third act just beautiful action, beautiful character building within that action. Yeah, and how they all team up to beat the Omni Droid. Pushing the button was funny. Oh, we also forgot to mention how Sam Jackson is like perfect casting for Frozone.
Oh yeah.
And that it's really that one scene where he wants a super suit. Where's my super suit? Oh man, classic.
What is the line where he's like, what is it, for the betterment of the people or something? And
For the greater good.
For the greater good. She's like, I'm the greatest good you ever had or ever seen.
I'm the greatest good you'll ever get.
Yeah.
So funny.
Dude, for a character that doesn't show up, bro, she might have one of the best like one-liners.
Oh man,
or
I can
lines.
see your face. Yeah,
And she's got a good name too. Her name's Honey.
Honey, yeah.
that is so.
He's like, the city's in danger. It's like, my evening's in danger. We've been planning this date for 2 months or something.
That's. Oh man.
Oh my god.
Classic.
Which I mentioned this after we watched the movie. We don't see him get his super suit in that scene.
Yeah.
It just cuts away. But the next time we see him, he has his suit. So I really want to know what happens in between. Like,
Does he wrestle her for it?
Super suit.
What if he left her frozen like he did that cop?
oh, dude.
That's the
Oh
dark
my
like
gosh.
horror off spin.
It's-
spin off.
It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission.
That is, don't
How
live-
can you ask for forgiveness
Kids,
if
if
you're
you're-
sleeping on the couch?
kids, if you're watching this, don't listen to that.
Valid advice.
I don't know what valid advice you're talking about.
Man. So, yeah, I guess we can transition. I know we've talked about it a little bit already, but just any interesting filmmaking elements. I know we talked about the action sequences and how creative they were. Right? Yeah, this is me trying to facilitate the podcast and like not being able to speak. But
It's
anyway,
okay.
You're doing great.
thanks. You too.
If you guys think Wesley is doing great on this podcast, please comment.
If you think he's doing terrible, also comment.
Yeah. Hopefully you think I'm doing great. As long as you hit smash like and smash comment,
Smash comment.
click notification bell.
Follow.
Anyway,
So yeah, one thing I thought was really interesting. What?
I was gonna say, tell us about the cloth and the hair.
So I didn't find as much as I wanted to about the cloth and hair, but here's the cool thing. So we've seen humans, like leading up to Incredibles, we've seen humans in other Pixar movies. We've seen Andy and his mom and his sister in Toy Story. We've seen the dentist in Finding Nemo. We've seen the girl in Finding Nemo too. Darla, you know.
there was that before or after?
I think Finding Nemo was before Incredibles.
What about Monsters Inc? Was that around the same time?
I think that's 2003 or 2.
That's a good question. But
Let's look
regardless,
I could be completely wrong.
Either way. Oh, it was before. It was before because... So this was really cool. The Incredibles was Pixar's first movie where humans were the main characters. And
okay, yeah,
I thought this was really interesting from a technical standpoint because there were things that were introduced as challenges for them. And I think they did really good to solve those challenges. So basically, you know, like we've seen Boo and Monsters Inc. and stuff. And one thing that they had for Incredibles was, they've had humans before, but the amount of attention on these humans was a lot more. So they went deeper with like the skeletal build of the characters, the models. They even went further in how muscle is on the character and how it moves and stuff. And yeah, with hair, I wanted to find more stuff about this, but basically at this point, the hair that they were trying to do, like I think I heard in one behind the scenes clip, one of the technical guys was like, yeah, the hair we're trying to do, it's pretty much theoretical. And he's like, oh, so you're saying it's theoretical when we have less than a year to get this movie out?
That's so
And
funny.
so basically they were able to, I wish I could say more about the technical things of it. But yeah, with like Violet's hair, like that was a big challenge. Having it fall and having it to react when she reacts and having hair react, especially. So they had like, you know, a still environment, like say the dinner table. That's without any outside elements interacting with the hair except for her movement, giving it direction of what to do. But then, you know, we have wet hair, and that was another thing. And I
that
think
one scene where they crash on the water. Yeah.
And then even, you know, hair and wind, those were all things they were having to tackle from a technical standpoint, which I thought was really cool because I think they did really well with it. Another cool thing that they did was they were talking about how Brad Bird, the director, kind of wanted the humans to be believable, but also have a stylized look.
Yeah.
And without giving them too much detail, like pores and stubble and acne and things that make humans very, very believable from a photorealistic sense. They didn't really want to lean into that, but one thing that they did do was introduce more subsurface scattering, which basically is referring to when light penetrates and bounces around transparent objects. So like if you were to shine a flashlight behind your hand, shine it towards you, you see kind of the inside of your skin because the light is shining through that. And so that's subsurface scattering is relating to that. So they were able to add an element of that to the characters, that when they move throughout these lit situations and lit environments, it adds a sense of believability to them without doing a lot of like fine detail in their skin and stuff. So I thought that was really cool, really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you know, it doesn't quite look as sharp as a modern Pixar movie, but like it still looks really great. And even like Elastigirl's like hair at times, like looking messy, like slightly, you know, it didn't always look perfect, right? Because she was like a mom, like with 2 kids or 3 kids, right? And, you know, and even like Mr. Incredible, like his character design, like he had like a really big torso and his legs really small. I don't know. I just thought that was funny character design.
Yeah.
How they were able to manage a lot of, I think, really challenging things probably, especially at that time.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
you know, Incredibles 2, you know, ramping that up even more, right? So, yeah, Pixar, man, top of the game. Have been for a long time, even if the storytelling hasn't always been there over the last decade. I mean, still, like, popping out really great achievements, you know, in animation year in and year out. So,
yeah. I think they had over 130 sets for The Incredibles, and Finding Nemo had like, I think 20 or something. So it was a huge set extension.
Oh yeah.
Even with costumes, like for one character you had
multiple super suits,
multiple everyday clothing for just one character, you know. One thing that was interesting was they had this character called the Universal Man. So there's a lot of scenes where there's a lot of civilians in the shot. So to save time from having to animate and model each individual character, whether it's like an extra or say like the principal or what's Dash's teacher's name who sat on the tack?
Football head.
Football.
Oh yeah. Bernie.
Don't Bernie me. So the Universal Man was like a template they made that they then used. It was like a model template, and then they used that Universal Man to then
Like stretch and make
other characters, so that they had like a base, but then they would kind of just apply different characteristics to make them look a bit more unique, which was really cool. So Bernie and the principal were both created from the Universal Man. So it's cool thinking that they were both made from the same model. But
and I imagine like all the other heroes you see in passing probably were too then.
He did say one of the team members on the film did say, I don't remember his name, so I'm sorry, whoever you are. He did say that I think some of the superheroes were from the Universal Man as well.
It's pretty cool. I mean, you think it'd be like that's an intuitive thing, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe it isn't, or maybe it wasn't in 2004. Mm-hmm. And I guess Pixar. I'm not gonna say they were the first to do it, but they were the first to be super successful, I think, with this 3D style of animation, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, absolutely.
Like computer animation?
Yeah, like I know they weren't the first to do it, and they definitely weren't.
Well, they were the first ones to do like the full feature-length movie.
As like an animated film. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, Toy Story was the very first.
Okay.
Well, then, full length, yeah.
So then, they really were working.
Mm-hmm. And DreamWorks caught on too. I think they did.
Well, Shrek is like.
Well, I remember Shrek is early 2000s.
I think it's 2001.
And there was that random movie Ants. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah,
it like came out the same year as Bug's Life or something, and everyone was really confused.
Yeah, my point being, I guess, is like that they really were treading on new ground. Like this is all new things.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah,
what sounds intuitive now was definitely not.
And now we get movies like Garfield, and so
that's not
how the medium has evolved.
Oh yeah, it is an anime. I was thinking of the
the live
action one. Well,
I was like, that's not animated.
No, I'm talking the Chris Pratt one.
Yeah, the animated one.
So
well, technically, Garfield in live action, he is still animated.
That is true.
Yeah,
but he looks like a real. I mean, doesn't like no cat looks like that, but I'd believe it.
Yeah, I think they did a good job bringing him to live action.
If you took a drink every time we mentioned Garfield on the Incredibles podcast, you'd have 2 drinks in your belly. So
you would probably still be.
What if it's every time
you'd probably still Garfield, be sober?
Like specifically the word Garfield,
or just like in general the conversations bringing up about him. We've had 2 of them now, at least.
Yeah. If I had a nickel,
I'd have 10 cents. So, because we talked about it twice.
I know.
Okay, just making sure you guys don't think that.
No, I just think 10 cents is really funny, Wesley.
Oh man,
I'm laughing at your joke.
Thanks for laughing at my joke. I appreciate it.
It's rare,
man. Well, I really appreciate. Now we're gonna just move on from the Garfield talk. So I guess one last thing about like the story and like these characters, it would be, I like how Dash and Violet kind of get their arcs too, towards the end. So Violet, she ends up putting her hair like back, right? Because she finally learns how to like use her powers effectively, but also like to accept like
just gains confidence.
Yeah, she gains confidence through the whole experience. And I know I mentioned this to you guys after we watched it last time, but it reminded me of like the movie Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. How there's that one character, America Chavez. And she like, I don't know, creates like time portals or something.
Shaped
as stars. And basically she's like not even a person. She's just like a plot device in the movie.
She is the MacGuffin.
She's a MacGuffin in a movie who has like no personality really at all. And she just like randomly learns how to use her powers when the plot is convenient. And when I was watching The Incredibles and how Violet learns how to use her powers really effectively, it like was way better than the Doctor Strange version. I don't know. It's like, I guess 2 different examples and like one way to do it really effectively, like this trope of an insecure character finally like coming into their own.
Well, it's really subtle too, because it's not like it's completely different from the Doctor Strange film. Yeah. But what is different is that America in the Doctor Strange film is shown to use her powers multiple times.
Yeah.
Before that point,
And
Violet,
she can't do it anymore because she got traumatized from it or something
Or whatever.
as a kid. Because
she stepped on the memory pod that reminded her that her parents are dead.
yeah, which the memory pod was such a forced
We're not getting into
interjection into the movie. But anyway,
but with Violet, you see throughout the film that while she can activate her powers, it's for a split second. It's really quick. She can't hold it, and that's obviously a point of emphasis to the point to where they're on the jet and Syndrome sends those missiles after them, and Elastigirl or Mrs. Incredible, her mom is like, Violet, you got to put a shield around us or we're gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And then Violet can't. So
that scene was so good. The plane crash scene. Yeah.
So what the film is doing is putting her in a stressful situation and she can't do it.
Yeah.
So to contrast that with Doctor Strange, they just put her in a stressful situation once.
Yeah.
And she's able to activate it when she needs to.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie, they do it once, she can't. And then it shows her practicing with it intermittently. There's not a ton of time devoted to it, but they show you see it. They don't have to tell you. You don't have to say and Violet practices to hold a shield up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Wesley.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, they put in the effort to set this up as part of her character. So her powers came along with her growth as a character and growth and confidence, which is a lot more. It's way more effective storytelling than just a mere plot convenience. I mean, it is plot convenience in The Incredibles, but it's earned. They earn that by setting up her character that way throughout the whole movie, not just the one scene. Which, by the way, the plane crash scene, I know I mentioned it a second ago, but amazing. The writing in that, the performances, Holly Hunter,
the sound design,
basically yelling at her kids, you could just tell how committed she was to that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, sorry, Asher.
I was basically going to say what you said.
Yeah.
And when they fall, after the plane crashes, they fall. That whole sequence of them falling, I felt like I was falling with them. Just the way the music played in.
The way the wind sounds.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I love, and even the kids screaming, that felt so real.
And Violet, being really stressed. You could tell the characters, at work, were believable. This is how they would react in this situation.
Yeah.
And you could feel the danger. It was an excellent scene. One of the best scenes in the movie.
And, but, to focus again on Violet, to her, in her mind, she just got them killed because she couldn't, they're about to fall to their deaths probably.
Yeah.
So because she couldn't, protect them with her power.
Yeah.
So it's just hammering home this idea is they're just showing us things. They're not telling us anything. We're just intuiting this by the, from the writing of the characters and the events that they're in.
Yeah. And to go off of the theme of how these powers aren't just willy-nilly being used. There's actual effort put into using these powers, and it's directly related to the mental state of these characters, the physical state of these characters when they get to land, when Helen, Dash, and Violet get to land. One thing that I thought was really creatively done and really well done was how they were all crawling on the beach because they just rode across the water miles to get to the island after the plane crash. And you see all of them, they're just super tired. They flop down on the sand. But what was really cool was how Helen walked out of the water. She was all stretched out. And she wasn't back, she stretched herself out to be a boat. She didn't just automatically become back to a human. How long she was able to stay a boat, it was cool seeing that it had kind of an effect on her. She had to kind of recover and recuperate from that, after a moment of being stretched out.
Yeah, she had to try to gain her regular form back.
Yeah.
There was a very subtle effort, or maybe not even that subtle, just a very clear effort on her part to compress again, I guess would be the word. But yeah.
Which is really cool because it gives a lot of weight and a lot of like it gives a lot of weight to their powers. It's not just like you use this power whenever. Like there's a very clear relation between how extensive they're using their powers and when they're using their powers for how long. I thought that was a really cool touch.
To expand on that just a little bit, going back some, when Edna is showing Elastigirl her suit and they're twisting it, Elastigirl winces.
Oh,
At that sight, at the idea that she would have to twist so much. But Edna's making a point. It's like, it doesn't matter what you contort yourself into, the suit will hold up to it.
Yeah.
And Elastigirl's just watching, and she's seeing her. I guess she's imagining herself twisting that many times, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that would kill me," or would hurt a lot, or so it'd be strenuous. So, just subtle things like that.
Which that is cool, because just because she stretches doesn't mean she just automatically can't feel, because she still can feel stuff.
Yeah.
Because when, like Wesley, when you were talking about the fact that she was stretched out between 3 hallways, stuck between 2 doors, infiltrating the base, when she was out of that situation and when she got back together, like her body, she kind of like rubbed her hip or like her waist, and she was like, "Whew!" Like that was a bit much,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, just very detailed. That just makes the story and experience a lot richer, for sure. So,
yeah. Which you said it when we watched it, like amazing creativity on how they use their powers in these situations. They're not just passive superpower scenes. Yeah. Like there's so much connection, so much meaning behind everything. And
it's not just generic like punching bad guys, right? Like it's genuine creativity and love and care. So, yeah. So, shall we give it a rating? Or a word?
If you say incredible.
Incredible. It's an incredible movie.
I mean, I'll let you have it, but I'll be we'll
be a little disappointed, but you can say it's a free country.
You're allowed to say what you want. This is a platform.
I'm going to go last because I need to think about it.
He definitely had incredible picked out.
No, I was going to say incredible as a joke. Like
I ruined your joke there. I'm sorry.
Well, it's because everybody listening to this would probably be like, "Oh, he's going to say incredible."
Oh man,
Outstanding. The Outstandings. That's not a movie. You can say that.
Sounds like a good movie. The Outstandings.
Magnificent.
Anyways, y'all can go ahead and give your ratings.
Go ahead, Wesley.
Me?
Tell me what you think about this.
I mean, I don't have any like criticism of the movie, I guess. So
I would say I think I have maybe one criticism of the movie. Oh. Do we want to talk about criticism actually before we go into ratings?
Well, I would say, I
just want to confidently say a 10 before Asher criticizes it.
Okay, all right.
But what if he says something and you're like, that's actually...
You can just be like, oh, well, it's not a 10 out of 10 because of this.
Well, this is kind of the only thing I'm thinking about that I feel like could have maybe been done a little bit better. Outside of this, nothing really stands out at the moment. But it's when Mr. Incredible hacks into the big computer and he's going through the supers that were put up against the Omnidroid versions, and like it'll show either the superhero was terminated or the Omnidroid was terminated. I thought that part was really creative because it seemed like he was just going through their files and like realizing what they were doing. I thought that was good. But then the part that I felt like was a bit plot driven and a little less creative was when they just show what the Omnidroid is going to do next. Like it's just going to fly and then land in the city and start destroying things. I was like, I don't think...
Why would Syndrome animate that?
Yeah, like why would that pop up? You know, maybe they had a brief, like a week before, and he was telling all his goons, like, hey, here's what's going to happen. It's going to crash on the city. I don't know. I
thought it was just playing into that like 60s spy tropes where it,
Okay. But following right after that, I think is maybe one of the most beautifully edited scenes in the movie, because it's one of the brief times they use quick editing, like quick cuts. It's when all those squishy balls are
The
being
blobs,
shot at.
yeah.
Are being shot at Mr. Incredible. It's going back and forth from like the guns firing, them sticking to Mr. Incredible, him trying to get out of it, but then like continuing to get covered at him. The cuts got quicker and quicker, and it just added so much to the like chaos of that scene and the, in my opinion, like the anxiety of that scene too. And you can tell like the editors were intentional. They weren't just quick cutting at any moment to quick cut. Like they knew when to hold on a shot. They knew when to cut it quickly. So yeah, I thought that was really good. But I guess the little Omnidroid flying animation revealing the plot or revealing the villain plan could have been done a little bit more creatively.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing with that specific. I was like, oh, I mean, it didn't linger with me or anything, but I was like, that's interesting. Is it within Syndrome's character? I mean, sort of. I just feel like it's like slightly past the line of things that would happen. But I'm not like,
I didn't even think twice about it when I saw
I
it.
didn't think tootin' twice.
I didn't think tooting twice about it.
but I do have one other criticism, and it's, I just feel like the movie could have been like 15 minutes longer. Because I just feel like we go from Mr. Incredible being captured to like the whole family's coming over, and Helen found out that Bob is on an island and not at some conference.
Yeah.
It just kind of like happens really quickly. I wouldn't even say the pacing's bad. I just feel like we could have had a little bit more of in that little transitionary period of going from Bob figuring out that the folks here on the island are bad, and Helen finding out, it just kind of happens like all at the same time. It's very minor. It doesn't like really like hurt the movie too much. It's just watching it, I feel that. I'm like, I just feel like everything's kind of happening at once. And maybe that's intentional, but so.
I saw a trivia that The Incredibles actually was the longest like 3D, like computer animated movie ever. And I think it
Up until that time.
Yeah, and I think I think it's like still the second. I forget what the movie was.
What?
That passed it, but it's like an hour 58 minutes. So I think it's, and I'm not saying you're wrong, like, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's really hard. It takes up massive resources to make these movies.
Well, I'm not saying they should have stopped and been like, we need to add 15 minutes. I'm just saying, like, watching it, like, if I have to say something about it.
Yeah.
So that leads to like, my rating.
Well, did you finish on your rating?
I locked into 10.
He locked
Locked in 10?
10
What
out of
are the main reasons for 10 out of 10?
I mean, I think I watched the movie. I was thoroughly entertained the whole time. I thought that the character work, the writing, the pacing in the movie, like, no complaints. I thought it was really entertaining. The score, like everything, the sound design, their use of like cinematography, like everything to me, like it really locked in. Like I felt glued to the screen the whole time. And it's one of my, like, I think it's one of the all-time great movies. I just think it has that reputation, at least among animated movies. But I was just thoroughly impressed when I watched it last week. And
3 days ago. 4 days ago.
I don't know. And I'm more inclined to give movies 10s than I used to, because when I think about like what is a 10, I'm like, well, if I can't come up with like any like legitimate criticisms of it, like I might as well give it a 10. And not to say that there aren't movies that I think I slightly enjoy more. I think there probably are. So numbering systems can be confusing, but anyway.
Yeah, my numbering system is not the same as yours. But can I share mine now?
Yeah.
Can I share mine now?
I just wanted to make sure Wesley
I'm locked in.
was good.
You're locked in 10. All right,
10.
So I would give it obviously a 9, which
Out of 9.
no, out of 10. Out of 10. I just really love it. It's something I watched as a kid, something that I'm watching now, and I'm just like, it hasn't dipped in quality at all. It's not dated. It's not even the animation where you said, it's not as clean or as crisp as some newer stuff, but I don't watch it and be like, ugh, I watch it and I'm like, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, you can't fault it also for its limitations at the time compared to
to its credit, I think it's like it's animated in such a way that it will never ever completely look like it's bad or terrible. Like there's certain things that are animated today or even 20 years ago that you watch now and you're like, that looks
like
awful.
the first Tron movie. It's like, sure that was cool at the time.
Yeah, the one from the 80s.
Nowadays,
I mean, it was revolutionary.
Nowadays, it's like, this is painful to look at. The Incredibles not like that.
Well, Tron is like, I mean, I have a thing where I can forgive visuals if I'm entertained by the story or whatever. Tron, that first movie, just also has the problem of being like super boring. So not only does it look like really ugly, it's super boring. The Incredibles has none of that. Not super boring, really fun. It's just a really good story. It's really clean.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I already shared like any issues I really had with it. So yeah, 9 out of 10.
9 out of 9.
10.
9.
Nothing's ever perfect, Wesley.
Mine was a 10 out of 11. So. No.
Well, now you're adding extra numbers.
It was a 5. It was 5 out of 5 stars on my new Letterboxd account. That's what I put. So.
I also put 5
in
stars.
the show notes.
But to me, stars are different.
Stars are different than numbers in Jason's mind, which we don't need to get into that.
We don't need to explain why I think things.
What's your word, Asher?
So I think I'm going to go with relatable out of 10.
Dude.
Because
excellent word.
I love how fantastical these superheroes are, but at the same time, how relatable they are in their family dynamics from the beginning of the movie to the ending. Like we see them grow as a family together. We see, like, I love how Helen and Bob are running through the jungle to catch up with their kids, and they're still like talking about like what's happened over the past 2 months as they're like trying to work together, but they're also trying to work it out between them at the same time. Like I thought that was really fun. And just like Dash's energy, Violet's older sister, type characters. I loved how relatable everything was. And even though it's, set in a universe not technically based in our world, like a lot of the motivations, even a lot of the humor just felt very relatable. And it's like, oh, I could see myself, doing these things or responding these ways if I was in that world, because it's relatable. So yeah, hopefully that
relatable out of 10.
I agree.
You acquiesce.
I also like Jason's word clean. He described it, clean out of 10. It's such a smooth movie.
Yeah. And you said something about the pacing, which I think the pacing, I thought about it after we watched the movie. Pacing is beautiful. Like they know when to hold on moments and scenes, but there was never a moment where I was bored.
There's nothing that was like jarring. Like it never felt like, oh, it's really serious, and then all of a sudden we're happy-go-lucky, which happens so many times in like these action comedy type movies. But no, this one was like, I felt like they just weaved, they weaved in the tone and differing tones at times like really well.
Yeah, they understood the emotions of the movie, and they didn't. I appreciate the fact that they didn't want to undercut any emotion. So, yeah.
I like it. I agree with all of you.
So you agree that it's a 10 out of 10?
Yes, he does.
That's not what I said.
Thanks.
I agree with your thoughts.
You said that. You said
I have told Jason that I want to be present when he gives a movie a 10 out of 10. Because has that happened yet? No.
No, and it never will.
It will, bro.
No.
It'll be the movie you make.
The movie if I ever make a movie, it's a 10 out of 10. The highest I've ever given someone is the 9.5.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that for?
A couple of things. Literally something I just watched last night. Another David Lynch movie. # watch the previous episode. But
why do you have to hashtag it?
Sorry, I'm from an older part of the internet.
Back in my day.
Sorry. Mulholland Drive.
Okay.
By David Lynch last night. I just watched that last night. Dude, I won't get into it. We're not doing recommendations.
We're not doing recommendations.
And whatchamacallit?
Sorry, I did ask a question that invited a tangent, so sorry about that.
I don't think I said it on... I think I said in the podcast, the very first one we did, I said Interstellar's a 9, but it's actually a 9.5 for me.
Nice.
That's a very personal rating, though. If you ask me objectively, that movie's not quite a 9.5. But
nice.
there's a couple others I'd have to go back and look at my rating.
Well, we're about to speak very subjectively about this. So we promised it at the beginning. We're going to talk about our Mount Rushmore of superhero movies. And if you don't know what Mount Rushmore is, 4 presidents' faces dynamited into a rock. So you have 4 options. Your top 4 favorite superhero movies.
Spider-Man
It doesn't have
4
to be
times.
necessarily the best one you think, but your favorites, right?
I've had an hour and a half to think about this.
And there's a rule. You can only do one movie or one. Sorry, let me rephrase this. So you can only do one movie per superhero. One movie per superhero. So you can't put 4 Batman movies or 4 Spider-Mans or. And Jason really wants to say a TV show. I'm not going to personally count that for my own, but
I'm not gonna.
Jason really wants
I'm
to
not
put
gonna-
TV in there.
I'm not going to put a TV show in my Rushmore,
I
but
just
I
don't
will.
think it's fair because you have several seasons to do stuff versus like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
I'm going to honorable mention my TV show. All right.
Okay.
Is that fine? Is that
is-
okay, Wesley?
That is very fine and okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
So,
Do you want me to go first,
sure,
or do you want to go first?
you can go first.
I can go first.
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be in kind of a order of what I regard higher, I guess. So first, Spider-Man 2, easily. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. We might even do it at one point, but I could talk about a whole hour and a half about that movie. What's not to like about it, man? It's a very. Me and Asher were talking about it before we started recording. Not specifically about this movie, but I just brought it up. How it's just a very simple movie where a lot happens in it, but everything is in service to kind of the main plot, which is this struggle that Peter's having of living this double life. It's a very classic story. Maybe in 2004 when it came out, it wasn't super, like it wasn't done a lot. But by now, like a ton of hero stories, but even just like, there's just a lot of stories about people leading double lives. And Spider-Man 2 is probably one of the best examples of that. And how being Spider-Man literally makes Peter's life like terrible, like it sucks. And his relationship with MJ, goes down the drain. He can't do anything at school. The movie literally opens with him getting fired because he was late to deliver pizzas because he had to stop and save kids. So it's like, it just really turns this idea, like, being Spider-Man would be awesome. But, like, would it? Being Spider-Man sucks. And it just really, like, kind of turns that idea in its head where, like, having powers isn't, like, all that it's cracked up to be. And it just really reinforces the message of the first film where it's like, this is, with great power comes great responsibility. The classic Spider-Man thing. And I just think it really envelops that well because you see Peter give up. And you see the effect that has on New York. It's just really good. Dude, I'm going to talk too long about it.
So that's your one.
That's one.
Or 1 out of 4. You don't have to do them in order if you don't want to.
They're in order for me.
Okay.
Just it's not order for everybody, I guess, but for me it's definitely in order. Number 2 would be The Dark Knight. I almost put the Batman 2022. But one, I felt like you would put that there. I didn't want to talk about it twice. But genuinely, I do probably hold The Dark Knight 2008 a little bit higher. I rewatched it a couple, maybe like 2 months ago. And, it's surrounded by like this meme culture. There's a lot of jokes surrounding the movie. It came out in 2008, and there's just a lot of, things floating around where I thought it'd be hard to appreciate it anymore simply because of how a part of the culture it is. But rewatching it, and it might have been the first time I'd seen it like as an adult, it really still is like a magnificent film. Again, it's kind of commenting on this double life thing, but in a very different sort of direction, I guess. Because, Bruce Wayne isn't Bruce Wayne. He's Batman. And it just kind of talks about the struggle, like, particularly when he wants to have this relationship with Rachel, about how even if he quits, he's not going to be, he is the Batman. He'll never be able to separate that from himself. He'll never be able to let that go, even though he wants to, or seemingly so, but we just know that he never can. And, don't even get me started on the Joker and Harvey Dent, who isn't the biggest role in that movie, but he plays such an important part in where Batman ends up at the end of the film, where he turns himself into like a villain, and gives that speech that everybody butchers, including me, where it's like, I'm not the hero. Gotham needs... I'm the one it deserves, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So just really great movie, dude. I can't talk about it enough. Christopher Nolan, he knocks it out the park. Number 3, it would have to be Man of Steel. Dude, I'm not even trying to troll you, Wesley. I genuinely love Man of Steel. And I know we're going to talk about it sometime here soon with this Superman
July.
stuff
Just wait.
coming out.
It's going to be an iconic episode.
Look, I love Superman in general, and I get it. I get why people don't love Snyder's Superman. I 100% understand why people feel a certain way about it. But, and I know it's not classic Superman, but I still think it has that at its core. It's just, it's just displayed very differently. But I just love his naivete, I think, in that movie. We think of Superman in general as just really being like, he can do no wrong. And I'm not really the biggest fan of like evil Superman. I think it's done to death. I think it can be done well. But there's just a lot of it right now. There's a lot of evil Superman clones. Whereas this version of Superman, it's not like, what if Superman was evil? It's just, what if Superman just, was learning? And I think we're going to get maybe some of that in the James Gunn film, which I'm looking forward to. But just seeing that, and then you contrast that with Zod. I think Zod is such a really like well-written character. He's a little campy, played by Michael Shannon. He camps it up a little bit, but I think it services the character really well, because he's like this zealot who, much like Thanos doesn't see clearly, if we're going to be talking about superhero villains, but he believes he's right. And the same thing for like Zod, where like his goals doesn't like, if you try to criticize it, you could poke holes in it, but at the end of the day, he just sees what he's doing as the right thing to do. He's got to save Krypton. And if that means getting rid of these people he views as like ants, like he's going to, that's what he's going to do. It's just a really strong motivation for a character, and it's, you can't relate to it because I'm not a Kryptonian, so I don't sympathize with him at all.
Yeah.
But I sympathize with the ideas like your people are gone, and you want to bring them back some way. And while he's blinded by that, by that need to bring them back, Clark, whose people is also gone, that's his people too, recognizes like that's not right.
Yeah.
And obviously, he grew up on Earth, so he's biased, but to me, it's a really strong movie. I love it a lot.
Nice.
And then 4th would be Captain America: Civil War.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I know, like, it's not the most complex movie, and I'll agree with folks where they say like, they weren't ever going to kill each other, so some of the stakes aren't always there in terms of like the big fights that they have. Although when you get down to like the really core of the film, which is Iron Man versus Captain America, they were indeed going to, at least on Iron Man's part, he was going to, kill Bucky Barnes. And I just think it's a really like well-crafted film, because, and some people use this as a critique against it, but I really love the idea that they're really torn apart by Zemo in his scheme to like, he says it himself. He's like, there's no way I could have fought any of you, but if I could get you to fight each other, then I'd be satisfied. It's just, the movie carries a lot of emotional weight for me, and it's not like the heaviest thing in the world. It's just, and a lot of it's, to the acting. Robert Downey Jr., that scene at the end where he watches his parents get attacked by the Winter Soldier. And when he turns to Steve, I mean, like, man, you want to talk about a shot of, or just like emotion. And I know these are Marvel movies, like they're not high art or anything, but I think it can get kind of close. But that scene, the pain in his eyes, man, like that's really great acting.
It is.
And
Did you know?
Did you know? And Steve like lies to him.
Yes.
And it's like just this deconstruction of both characters, and mainly even like Steve like just lies to him right there. And then, he fights him. He's like, all right, well, I did know, I guess. And Steve Rogers is like, he's not somebody who would lie. But you're pointing out this flaw in his character where he's like, he just wants to protect his friend. Because at the end of the day, the Winter Soldier or Bucky wasn't in control of himself. But I also like how they play on that, like, despite him not being in control, he remembers everything. Mm-hmm. And then Zemo, man, earlier in the film where he's listening to you don't know it's a voicemail until later in the movie.
Yeah.
But the voicemail of his wife and son or kid, like it just sounds like a phone call that she left for him. But then later you just realize he just listens to that every day or something.
Yeah.
And it hurts. And then, dude, Black Panther's probably the best out of all the times he shows up in the MCU, outside of maybe Infinity War. Dude, he's like great in his first appearance here.
Mm-hmm.
Vengeance has consumed you.
Dude, it's just such a great... I could
will
go
not
on.
consume me.
I'm like talking about this for a while, but great movie. The ending, especially, like the whole last sequence of events where it all comes, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just a really entertaining movie.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, no way around
I
it.
watched it in theaters, watching the airport fight, dude. It's such a... And Spider-Man shows up for the... Anyways.
That was a big deal. Spider-Man coming in the MCU.
It was.
So you're not putting Madam Web on your list?
I wouldn't put Madam Web
Are you sure?
in the category of
Okay.
watchable.
Okay. Just
Anyways,
making sure.
my honorable mention is a TV show, Daredevil, the Netflix series, which I think we talked about last episode. It's coming back. I think I talked about it a lot there, so I won't stick on it too long. But it is really just really good television. I'd say, some of the best things I've ever seen on TV is stuff like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and like Hannibal. I would say it's up there in terms of quality. Like the writing and the handling of its characters is up there. Better Call Saul is like probably the peak you can get when it comes to character writing, as far as TV shows go. So I wouldn't say it's as good, but it is close. It's really close, and I think everybody should watch the Daredevil show.
Yeah.
Honorable mention though.
It is good. The Defenders, nah.
The Defenders is what we call rule of cool.
It has its moments.
It's fun.
It has its moments.
But it's also like dragons under New York bones. I don't know.
What is going on?
What's going on?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I talked for a while.
thanks for talking for a while, man. No worries.
So, what were the... So, as a recap.
Spider-Man 2.
Do it for the short.
The Dark Knight. Man of Steel. And Captain America. Civil War. And honorable mention, Daredevil, the television series.
Epic.
Okay.
Not the movie.
Epic. No repeats.
Not Ben Affleck.
No repeats.
No repeats. No.
Amazing. That's good, man.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, I'm getting pointed at. So, for me, I'm gonna just put The Incredibles on there right away.
Yeah.
Right away. I don't need to go into detail because we just talked about it for a long time.
We got another app. I got time.
I got time. No way. That is the best joke ever.
It wasn't.
Isn't that from The Incredibles? Yeah, that's from The Incredibles. What? I didn't even catch that.
You guys didn't.
I still got time.
I got time. Dude, that was actually a good... That was better than the... that was better than the Incredible out of a 10 joke. Anyway, The Incredibles is on my list.
Uh-huh. Is this in order, by the way?
No, it's not.
Okay,
I'm just
no
thinking of
particular
these.
order.
I'm just thinking of them. The next one I'm going to go with is probably... would be the number 4 if I did rank them. Iron Man.
I was really close to putting that up there.
I was like, I got to put something from the MCU on here. And I don't think any of the individual movies stick out to me as like an all-time great movie. But I do think that if I had to put one on the Mount Rushmore, it would be Iron Man, just because of how important that movie was just to our culture. Like what it started, Jon Favreau directing. I mean, RDJ with the, role of his lifetime, right? I don't even think they even knew what they were doing or like what they were about to get into, when they started. I know they were kind of teasing a team up, but yeah, it's just really fun. It's it's a really entertaining lead character, well performed, who's capable, who's really smart, like who has his issues, right? Like he's got a laundry list of character flaws that he has to overcome and does overcome over the course of, like 15, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
In the MCU. I guess it would, from 2008 to, so like 11 years, I think would be the total time he was in the MCU. So,
plus whatever time elapsed in the blip as well.
Yeah.
Because he stayed around. He didn't.
True.
Yeah.
So on the actual timeline, it was like, what, 16?
16.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that was definitely deserving. Is it a perfect movie? I don't think so, but yeah,
Giant robot
for when you can only pick one per superhero, and yeah, it made the list. So Iron Man, I really almost put in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I was like, I'm gonna give it to Iron Man because like for Mount Rushmore, like this is the prominent like face you're displaying. Like that's what I thought was more influential and impactful to me and the industry as a whole, I think.
Nice.
So I'm going to put, dang, I already forgot. So I've said 2 so far. So I guess this one I haven't forgotten yet. I'm going to say The Batman 2022.
I knew it.
No surprise.
No surprise.
Can you point to us to the...
The Batman.
hit the
But
button.
like, I know some people think it's boring or it's long, too dark. But you know what? If you think that, you're wrong. Okay, maybe it is too. Maybe it is dark. I get it, but I know it's 2 hours 45 minutes, and that's not the length of time you see for most superhero movies. But I think it earns that. Like, it's such a compelling and so darn entertaining and interesting detective story going on. The Riddler. I mean, the best Riddler maybe we've ever seen, comic or screen. I don't know, at least that I've seen. I haven't read all the comics. I've read some of them, but just the way that they grounded him into this universe. This is a very grounded, like non-fantastical version of Batman, which is similar to the Christopher Nolan one. And I almost went with The Dark Knight, but I was like, to me, I prefer the more moody visual style, very stylish, beautiful looking movie. What they did with the cinematography, like intentionally dirtying up the frames, the use of like reds and oranges. I mean, Batman himself looks great, like the costuming, the action sequences and how they're able to be creative with those. Just like the sound design, the weight of the punches. I mean, there's so many other great things about the sound design as well, but Colin Farrell's makeup, like all of these like different like technical elements of the movie really work well. Gotham City feels like a character, and I think that's one thing that I think the Batman has an advantage over the Dark Knight is like the setting. The Dark Knight has infamously been memed as like just Gotham City is just Chicago, or London or whatever they film, and the Batman, it feels like Gotham City is, I mean, it's inspired by like iconography, like from Times Square and stuff in London, but it feels like its own character. Like this is a place, it's a terrible place, but it's a place and is really well visualized. So that's probably my favorite superhero movie of all time. I would say The Batman.
Nice.
So what I've said, The Incredibles, Iron Man, The Batman, and oh yes. This one was hard for me too, but I'm going to say Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The second one.
Okay.
So the first one is really good, but the second one I think elevated it to the next level with Miles's character.
And you feel confident putting it there without having seen the part 2?
Oh
to
yeah.
that?
Part 3, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really think that they took everything. There's a few things that did frustrate me about the character or about the first movie. I mean, overall, it's a fantastic movie. Don't get me wrong, but there was a few things I'm like, I felt like they really did Miles dirty in the first movie. Like they like tied him up and like, I just didn't agree with the decision they made in that film to do that and how he came out and like was all of a sudden friends with everybody. And like, they essentially do a similar thing in the second movie where like all his friends are like, Miles, you're not seeing the bigger picture here. But Miles is like, well, actually I am. And I think like you're like being deceptive and you're not telling me the whole story. And I'm actually going to do things the way that I think is the right way. And I really liked how they took a similar concept, but just did it better, executed it better in the second. And it's also really fun. I mean, the chemistry between Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen is just off the charts.
Spider-Man and Spider-Man.
It felt, Spider-Man and Spider-Man, yeah, and just all the different characters, how they weave in and out.
Yeah.
It's a tall job, and it's just, 2 animated movies here on my Mount Rushmore, but, I mean, you can't deny greatness.
Dude, if it were up to me, every Spider-Man movie would be on the Mount Rushmore. Every single one, including them.
Yeah.
All Spider-Man movies are good, except for Amazing Spider-Man 2. But we'll throw that up there because we don't want to leave it alone.
All right, Asher, take it away.
So, first one, The Incredibles.
Yes.
Share.
Excellent pick.
You guys can share the mountain face.
Oh, the
middle-
Mount
Well,
Rushmore?
my mountain's in North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My mountain's in Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was
There's
saying,
no mountains here,
You can
though.
have The Incredibles in the middle, and his goes to the right, yours goes to the left.
Yeah, so The Incredibles, to top off everything I've said about it, I really enjoy how diverse it is in the characters, the set pieces. It's just very eclectic, and I've always enjoyed it. I love how creative the decisions were with how these characters are using their powers, like all of it. Everything was just to the T. And it's just a really fun superhero movie. And super colorful, all around really great superhero movie. Number 2, not in any other particular order, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as well.
No way, bro.
Dude, I'm not kidding. When you said it, I was like,
We're
another
at
one in
least
common.
2 for 2.
Dude,
You haven't seen the Batman, so we're not going to go 4 for 4. But
yeah.
we're at least 2 for 2.
So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I did see it in theaters, but it took time for that one to grow on me. And then by the time I appreciated that film, it was, before Across the Spider-Verse. And so when Spider-Verse was announced, or the second one was announced, and when it came out, I was really excited for it. Dude,
Yeah.
just banger. Like, they hit it out of the water. Well, they hit it out of the park. That's the metaphor there.
Hit it out of the
They
water.
blow it out of the water. They hit it out of the park. The way the film starts off, just with the visuals, the way they chose to go about the animation and the visuals, the way they incorporated music into the visuals, like the way they tied it together, just amazing. Like I love Miles's roots in this like hip hop based music, and it interweaves with his Spider-Man theme and everything around that. But then like you bring in Spider-Man 2099, and like his music is more futuristic.
It distorts too.
It
Like as
distorts.
it goes on.
Yeah. And like the way they introduced his character, he was like basically busting through the portal, and like it went into slow motion as Spider-Gwen looked at him and he looked at her, and like the music was like and like everything about how they chose to like introduce characters, the way they were able to capture their personalities, the music, the visuals, just so much fun. And I think the story was so good. Like, to kind of go back off of what you were saying, Wesley, I really enjoyed this situation where Miles was told that life should go this way and that you shouldn't intervene. But he's like, I'm not going to let, my dad die. Like, I'm going to do what is right. I'm going to save him. Why would you not? Mm-hmm. And for me, it kind of was for me, like, it kind of translated as this idea of like, you know, we have our free will, and sometimes there's things that happen that people think should happen, but like we still have a free will to help change that, you know? And so I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed Miles's persistence and his perseverance, like through all the characters trying to stop him. I was just like rooting him on 100%. I was like, Miles, go, like, go, like, get home. And, yeah, it was just such a fun movie. And I think the pacing was really good too. There's never really like a dull moment. And when there are slower moments, they're intentional. Like with Miles and his mom on the rooftop after the party. That's just one example, but yeah, I could definitely go on about that. And plus two, I saw it with my wife and she enjoyed it a lot. And so it was like a very nice shared moment for us when we went to see it in theaters. So yeah, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. These last two guys are really hard. So I'm going to have to go with Captain America, The First Avenger.
Oh, okay.
Excellent
okay.
pick.
Yeah.
Excellent pick.
I was kind of in between that and The Winter Soldier because I think The Winter Soldier has a lot of really good, like I love the thriller aspect of The Winter Soldier. But to go with Captain America, The First Avenger, just an OG movie. His character arc, beautiful. Mm-hmm. He is well deserving of the role and title of Captain America. And I think it's beautiful. The visual effects, really amazing with how they even skinnified Chris Evans.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I love the time period too. Like I love it was this 20s, 30s timepiece or period piece.
The 40s.
Oh, 40s?
Because it's World War II.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, 40s period piece. And I loved the action sequences. Like I really enjoyed them. I remember when I downloaded this movie on my iPod, like after I bought it,
Dude.
I would replay the montage where like Captain America was busting through with his squadron, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And like there's a slow motion scene where he throws up a grenade to one of his friends and his friend is like on top of this ginormous tank and he like catches the grenade and throws it in the hatch and then it just explodes and he's jumping off of it. So cool. And even the villain, like I wasn't familiar with Red Skull, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't familiar with Red Skull as a villain. Like I wasn't a super big comics reader growing up. So that reveal I thought was really cool and it kind of caught me off guard in a good way. And yeah, I think just the set pieces themselves are really good too. Like Captain America and his squadron getting ready to zip line down, you know, a snowy canyon to hop on the top of a train. Like stuff like that, super fun, super creative. I love it. And then I guess to cap it off, guys.
Cap it off.
Oh, I didn't even intend to that one. I like that. It's a Soups movie. Man of Steel.
No. Are you being serious?
Yeah. So
You must have watched different movies, guys. Like, I'm sorry.
So
I'm happy that you like that movie, and I'm going to listen intently to my friend about talking about something he likes.
Learn one day soon.
Well, so this movie, for some reason, I really enjoyed it when it came out. Like, it had a good impact on me. And I think a big part of it was the score. Just, especially the theme flight. And I really enjoyed, like, the cinematography of it. There was something about how down to earth they made it. Like, especially with Clark Kent growing up with his parents. Like, I loved how kind of rugged the cinematography felt. And I loved his character dynamic. backtrack. I loved his dynamics with his dad, and like the struggle of trying to be a father to this essential superhuman, but yet he's still a kid at the same time. I think they really did well about trying to capture that and trying to portray the struggle that his dad had with this. I'm not a huge fan of how they wrote his dad off in the tornado scene. We could talk about that more when we talk about Man of Steel.
It was just like
I like that scene.
But even like with the visuals, like they showed so much power in Superman and even Zod and the other villains when they fly, when they punch, when they land. I was like, wow, these people are super strong. And just like the sound effects with the punches, you know, everything revolving around showing how powerful they are. I think they did really well. And even just like the visuals themselves, most of the time are really good. And I think the visuals hold up. I love when Superman first flies, you know, he puts his suit on, he flies. I love it. Yeah. And I think the parts that stand out to me the most about that movie are more of the internal character developments than maybe like the end fight scene. Because I think that's what I enjoyed a lot about it, was like this kid who's growing up, figuring out how to live life, but also use his powers, but also figuring out should he use his powers, you know, all of that paired with the cinematography, the visuals. Yeah. And even the beginning scene I really enjoyed, like his Kryptonian dad like being a baller on Krypton as like it's blowing up and he's still trying to like be super dad and like get his son off the planet. And even the world building of Krypton I really enjoyed. His dad has this pet that looks like a super cool flying dragon alien thing. I was like, this is fun world building, and I really enjoyed that, the way they opened up the movie. So yeah, those are just a few notes of Man of Steel. Yeah,
I'm glad someone appreciates
Stan of Meal.
Stan of a meal.
That's me.
Oh my
me when I'm
gosh.
hungry.
I'm
Stan
glad
of
someone
Meal.
on this podcast can appreciate Man of Steel for the art piece that it is.
Anyways,
I'm happy that you guys enjoy something.
Are you?
I wouldn't want to take that away from you.
I feel like you would. I'm just kidding.
Maybe I would. Well, fellas, it's been a great podcast. I think it's about time we sign off. So, just a quick plug. Where can you find us?
Yes, so you
Here.
can find us on Instagram. I'm gonna not look at my notes this time, and straight into the camera. You can find us on Instagram at On the Slate Podcast. You can find us on YouTube at On the Slate Podcast. You can also email us on the Slate Pod at
Pod.
gmail.com.
Not podcast.
Not
for Gmail.
podcast.
Pod.
On the Slate Pod at gmail.com. Anything else?
It's raining outside.
Or
raining
just click
outside.
on the profile of the video that you're watching.
Yeah.
And then you'll find us.
Or look at the show notes. We are primarily on Spotify and Apple. And
Yeah.
we are grateful that you are watching
Or listening.
or listening.
This is our longest ever episode, so I hope you enjoyed. And I'm Wesley.
Oh, I'm Jason.
And I'm Asher.
Well, this is the On the Slate podcast. We'll see you next time. God bless.